All right, so a day ahead of critical talks between the US and Iran aimed at de-escalating tensions. There's still no agreement on what should be on the agenda. Iran says the talks in Oman will focus on its nuclear program and the lifting of sanctions. But US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, well, he says Iran's ballistic missile capability must also be on the agenda for progress to be made.
I think in order for talks to actually lead to something meaningful, they will have to include certain things. And that includes the range of their ballistic missiles. That includes their sponsorship of terrorist organizations across the region. That includes the nuclear program, and that includes the treatment of their own people. They've expressed an interest in meeting and talking. If they change their mind, we're fine with that too. We prefer to meet and talk. I'm not sure you can reach a deal with these guys, but we're going to try to find out. We don't see there's any harm in trying to figure out there's something that can be done. This is a president that always prefers a peaceful outcome to any conflict or any challenge.
Friday's talks in Oman come after weeks of rising tensions and threats of military action, including the significant US military buildup in the region. Ahead of those talks, US media asked President Donald Trump whether Iran's supreme leader should be worried.
I would say he should be very worried, yeah, he should be. As you know, they're negotiating with us. They were thinking about starting a new site in a different part of the country. We found out about it. I said, you do that, we're going to do very bad things to you.
All right, let's take this on now with John Bolton, former US ambassador to the United Nations, of course, and a former national security advisor under Donald Trump. Joins us from Washington, D.C. Ambassador Bolton, welcome. So this meeting looks set to proceed, not yet precisely sure of its composition at this point, but given differences between the two sides on the parameters of what's up for negotiations, what chance do you think that we can move forwards towards agreement and away from a US attack?
Well, essentially no chance. I mean, I think these meetings are a waste of oxygen. There's simply no room for agreement between Iran and the United States on this. This is a point that was entirely predictable. And I think it's both sides checking the box. I don't know what Trump is going to do, but I don't think anything's going to come out of these negotiations, whether they're held in Oman or held in Turkey or held on the moon. It's just a waste of time.
So do you think, are you saying then that whatever happens that a US or Israeli attack or both is baked in whatever?
No, because nobody knows what Trump will do. He should. He set a red line for the Ayatollahs. He said, stop killing the protesters. He said to the protesters, keep protesting. Take control of your institutions. Help is on its way. The protesters kept protesting. The Iranian authorities massacred them. Secretary of State Rubio estimated in congressional testimony a few days ago, 30,000 dead. So Trump has drawn a red line now, and his credibility is at stake. That argues that he should do something, but he doesn't necessarily have a strategic goal. I think the strategic goal should be, and Trump has now said this, the overthrow of the regime. But we'll see what he does.
Yeah, because we have to remember the precedent for this on the basis that last time round there were 5 rounds of talks and then the nuclear sites in Iran were blitzed.
Well, they weren't blitzed. They should have been destroyed about 25 years ago. The world would have been a lot safer if we had acted back then.
How do you view the Trump approach to this sort of strategic dissonance, by design or not? But if you were still national security advisor, would you advise a president in this situation to play the cards the way that President Trump is?
Well, we don't know what he's doing, and there's probably good reason for that. But what we should be doing is cooperating far more with the Iranian opposition. I think the regime is at its weakest point since it took power in 1979. I think there's dissent all across the board on economic grounds. The young people are extraordinarily dissatisfied. The women are dissatisfied. The ethnic groups are dissatisfied. I think the rank and file of the Revolutionary Guard and the regular military could break ranks if they really think the end of the regime is near. So if Trump were acting strategically, he would strike at the instruments of Iranian state power that both threaten Iran's neighbors in the region, Israel and the Gulf Arab states in particular, and that are used to oppress its people. And I mean by that the Revolutionary Guard, the besieging militia, and other related aspects. I think the weakening of those instruments of state power would tell many in the regime the regime's days are numbered and would give heart to the opposition.
You talk of regime change, and indeed comparisons have been made with Venezuela in that cutting off the head of the snake will leave a much more pliable regime. But is that the case with Iran? If the leadership is targeted here, could that not unleash all manner of unexpected and dangerous repercussions, not only in the country itself, but right across the region and beyond?
Well, I don't think Trump has gone far enough in Venezuela. I think it's a mistake to leave any part of the Chavez-Maduro regime still in place. And to be clear, I think the real regime in Iran today is the Revolutionary Guard. I think the Ayatollahs, like the supreme leader, provide ideological cover, but it's the Revolutionary Guard that controls the nuclear and ballistic missile programs, controls vast parts of Iran's economy. And that really is the structure that needs to be broken. Dissidents need to be found. The regime needs to be fractured at the top to make it even more unstable. And the tendency, I think, of the rank and file, who know from what their families and their friends are suffering just how bad conditions are in Iran, I think things could move very quickly if the people really believe that the U.S. and at least somebody else in the outside world cared about who ran Iran.
But can the structures of the Revolutionary Guard be targeted precisely enough and on a scale wide enough to make a difference?
I think we've got that capability. Whether Trump will employ it, I don't know. But I think, for example, in the 12-day war, where Israel focused on Iran's ballistic missile program as well as the nuclear program, the U.S. only focused on the nuclear program, we stopped too soon. There are plenty more targets to hit, especially Revolutionary Guard headquarters and military bases.
This is high-stakes stuff, to say the least. What do you make of the U.S. element of this being in the hands of Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, whose their diplomatic expertise homes in on a kind of transactional and deal-making approach and doesn't come from the sharp end of diplomatic cliff edges, the like of which we're walking right now?
Well, it's like sending the Bobbsey twins to negotiate with Iran. I mean, I think it's a fruitless exercise in any event, and I think its lack of seriousness is demonstrated by the U.S. team.
Israel would argue, despite Iranian reverses with their proxies, their nuclear and terrorist threats remain. How will Israeli pressure and action affect how this ends up?
Well, I'd be delighted personally if the Israelis joined in the attacks. I think they still got significant equities at stake, as do the Gulf Arab countries, as long as Iran has the capability through its ballistic missile program and its support for terrorist groups to threaten the regimes in the Gulf, to threaten the oil infrastructure. They will always be at risk. And there is effectively no chance for peace and stability in the Middle East while this regime remains in power. Even if the regime goes, there's no guarantee of stability and peace, but it's an absolute prerequisite to making progress on all the key issues that still remain.
Could you see a scenario here, Ambassador Bolton, where Israel attacks in its own right and the US remains present with the armada, which is right there bristling off the Iranian coast with weaponry? It's the US, it stands off but doesn't actually attack and just leaves it to Israel.
Well, I think that would be a mistake for Trump. As I say, he drew a red line in his own social media postings. And for him to fail to vindicate that red line, whatever else Israel may do, I just think would be a blow to his credibility that would be intolerable. So whether, however, he does more than a one and done kind of attack, I think remains to be seen.
Ambassador John Bolton, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Don't miss out, get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news and expert insights. Like, share, stay ahead.